Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the show. We are going to be talking about a story that kind of seems straight out of hidden history. There are some kind of confirmation now coming out from The Intercept. This is a report from them talking about how Pakistan have confirmed secret diplomatic cables showing a U.S. pressure movement to remove the former prime minister there, Imran Khan. So we will break that down. Very, very interesting and important story for a pretty darn important nuclear-armed country in the Middle East. Also, we are talking about, or going through, a pretty great piece also in the Intercept by Natasha Leonard, talking about how we can kind of give too much credence to AI and not enough credence to really shitty, excuse my French, Republican ideology and really awful anti-LGBTQ politics. We have a great show for you today. Please welcome to Newsflash. All right, so we start off with this here. Let's go to Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Zain in The Intercept. For a year and a half, Pakistani politics has been gripped by the word of a diplomatic cable said to describe U.S. State Department officials encouraging the removal of former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan from power. And, he was someone who is, kind of interesting because he was oppositional to the U.S. He was somebody who was, kind of slightly, imperialist, if very quite socially conservative. He was no, Lula da Silva. He was no, any of the people that we kind of talked about on Hidden History. But I think the big point of this stuff and having kind of anti-imperialist foreign policy is that this stuff should not happen, even if the person is right-wing. And, they may be a little bit, left-wing on some areas, right-wing on some areas, just, not fitting into that left-right box, which, I'm pretty sure Imran Khan, a lot of people would say, does not fit into a kind of American political box spectrum. So it's very interesting to see how, but really, by the way, it's also kind of not getting picked up in the media, beyond The Intercept. So that's why, really The Intercept is so great. But last week, they published the contents of the cable known internationally as a cipher, which revealed that U.S. diplomats pressing for the removal of Khan over his neutral stance on the conflict in Ukraine. So that is a pretty incredible situation. And it's like, are they going to try and get Lula in Brazil? Are they going to try and get, Bibi Netanyahu or something like that? Of course not, because, that seems absolutely remarkable to me at first glance. Pakistan's leadership quickly began to question the authenticity of the document. No duh, because that's how they're in power, with the United States' help. So former FM Foreign Minister Bilwal Bhutto Zardari, who is part of the political opposition to Khan, had gone public suggesting that the published cable was inauthentic, arguing that anything could be typed up on a piece of paper. Even so, he blamed Khan and the former PM. Said the former PM should be tried under Pakistan's Official Secrets Act for potentially leaking classified documents, just in case, to arrest him, just in case. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, in the days after the cable was reported, told the local media the leak represented a massive crime while hedging about whether contents in it were true. Just days later, Sharif confirmed the document in an interview in The Guardian. Khan said he had the cable, but he lost it. Sharif, who handed the government over to a caretaker prime minister on Monday, said now it has been published on a website. So, if he had the cable, that means the cable was real. So, that's a little awkward there. So Sharif nor Bhutto Zardari had provided evidence of Khan's involvement in the leak of the document, which was provided to The Intercept by a source inside the Pakistani military. So, yeah, it seems like there was some kind of real consternation about this. It seems like pretty much everyone has been trying to deny that this was ever happening, deny that there was any effort to remove him by the United States. It was just kind of a natural uprising. On the U.S. side, the State Department had previously dismissed claims by Khan. The U.S. pressured him to be removed from power, and there was some pretty big protests that were to Khan's defense in that country, because he was pretty popular. He was, again, definitely had a lot of Pakistani nationalist characteristics. It was a big, big thing that he was, he was known for it, and he was known as, almost as kind of, as much as he can be as a major politician, kind of a man of the people figure. When he pressed further on the document at a press briefing, Miller told a reporter, this is the State Department guy, I want to say Brad Miller, just a random guess, Matt Miller, okay. He said it was close, the report was close-ish. Khan himself apparently had been placed under an escalating pressure while in prison. He's currently serving a 3-year sentence for corruption charges that his supporters say are politically motivated. The campaign against Khan culminated in this week's terror investigation for the cable leak. So a widespread crackdown against his supporters continues, with thousands still languishing in detention over allegations of involvement in his political party and a series of anti-military demonstrations that took place in the country in May. So yeah, it's been a pretty really remarkable response, and if we are really seeing, because a lot of people were, for a long time, there were some kind of sporadic situations under Trump, and a lot of people are like, oh, the military is going to fail under Trump. They did fail at doing some pretty darn evil stuff. They tried to coup in Venezuela. They were really thinking about Iran. They kind of failed in Bolivia to pull that off. When push came to shove, but they were successful in some places, but not really nearly as successful as they could have been. But it seems like a lot of this, it very well could be, and I'm not going to make any, broader predictions, but it seems like with stuff like this, we are making a return to a much worse time. The Cold War era, where we're going over, where we're just intervening in things. The idea that we ever really left, I think, is definitely up for debate for sure. There's no really good period when we were all stopping this stuff. But I think what really comes through is that this is kind of becoming a trend, and that, if you look at it broadly speaking, they may be a little bit more sporadic, a little bit, more kind of on the decline. They're definitely not infallible, but the U.S. empire and the U.S. government still got it. They're something that they're not to be trifled with when it comes to some of these countries. They can still do some pretty awful things. They can spur some pretty awful things. And if it looks like there is such a major involvement, which it kind of does from this cable here, that everyone has really tried to deny. They've tried to kind of shut it down. They've tried to kind of invalidate it. And it was all over the neutral stance in Ukraine. It's like, whoa, if that's actually the truth, that seems to be really quite remarkable. If that comes out to be the case, like it's really representing and kind of a warning sign, I think, for a lot of other countries in the world. And just, again, even if you don't agree with, he's not a perfect liberal, whatever, he could be a far-right conservative, but I still would not support the United States removing him. I would support his people, or the people overthrowing, an evil dictator, or whatever, but that would not, intervention, especially direct intervention or, supporting intervention in such a way, is really a just awful, morally wrong, politically wrong, just wrong in every single sense of the word here. Let's get more into this cable. So it was a March. So the U.S. State Department encouraged the Pakistani government in March 7th, 2022 meeting to remove Imran Khan. So this is right after the war started. Over his no, what am I? Yeah, that was right after the war started in 2022. And he was, apparently they were really pissed. So it was kind of Ukraine war fever. Like the fact that they managed to keep this on such a slow boil really shows. I don't think that they would be in this position now, because there's also plenty of people who have become neutral on it. Maybe they just picked off the lowest hanging fruit. And but even if that was the case, and word got out that the U.S. meant business about supporting Ukraine, like, there's still plenty of people that are very lukewarm in Ukraine. Pretty much the entire global South, India, Brazil, namely China, completely snuffing this up. Brazil and India probably hurt the most. Also, a lot of places in Africa. Israel, for Israel, literally Israel, is not supporting in any like kind of substantive way, the Ukraine war. Of course, they do it in rhetoric, but why Pakistan is, I think, is another question that's not really answered here. The meeting between the Pakistani ambassador to the U.S. and two State Department officials has been the nature of scrutiny, the subject of intense scrutiny, controversy, and speculation in Pakistan over the past year and a half as supporters of Khan and his military and civilian opponent jockeyed for power. So he was sentenced to 3 years in prison on corruption charges and taken into custody for the second time since his ouster. Khan's defenders dismiss the charges as baseless. The sentence also blocks Khan from contesting in Pakistan's elections. So, yeah, one month after the meeting, U.S. officials documented in the leaked Pakistani government document, no confidence vote was held in the parliament, leading to Khan's removal from power. The vote is believed to have been organized with the backing of Pakistan's powerful military at the time. Since that time, Khan and his supporters have been engaged in a struggle with the military and civilian allies, whom Khan claims engineered his removal from power at the request of the U.S. The text of the Pakistani cable produced from the meeting by the ambassador and transmitted to Pakistan has not been previously published. The cable, known internally as a cipher, reveals both the carrots and sticks the State Department deployed and its push against Khan, promising warm relations if Khan was removed and isolation if he was not. So they really kind of tried to get him out. They tried to encourage this from within the government. They didn't really, try to, fund a group or whatever. They just, sent cables to the government. So these military, to certain people in the military and this kind of civilian sector, the document labeled secret includes an account of a meeting between State Department officials, including Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs, Donald Liu, and Asad Majid Khan, who is at the time, Pakistan's ambassador to the U.S. The document was provided to The Intercept by an anonymous source in the Pakistani military who said they had no ties to Imran Khan or Khan's party. The Intercept is publishing the body of the cable below, conducting minor typos in the text can be used to, and because such details can be used to watermark documents and track their dissemination. The contents of the document contained by The Intercept with reporting from the Pakistani newspaper Dawn and elsewhere describing the circumstances of the meeting and the details of the cable itself, including in the classification markings omitted from the Intercept's presentation. The dynamics of the relationship between Pakistan and the U.S. described in the cable were subsequently borne out by events, which is very interesting to see there. In the cable, the U.S. objects to Khan's foreign policy on the Ukraine war. Those positions were quickly reversed after his removal, which was followed, as promised in the meeting, by a warm relationship between the U.S. and Pakistan. So, it really seems like, again, why the real question I have from this is, again, why is Pakistan so extremely important? And then why also are we really not talking about the situation more? All right. With that being said, let's move on to our next story. All right, so our next story is also from The Intercept, from Natasha Leonard here, and it marks kind of a very interesting intersection of two very important kind of trends going on in our country. And one of them is this drive towards, kind of the culture war becoming a bigger thing, especially in Republican politics, this kind of purity politics example of really trying hard to kind of enforce the most right-wing possible version of every single cultural issue in our schools, and even in places where a lot of parents and the kind of political ideology doesn't even fit with it, but and also in a lot of places obviously where it does, but taking away the right for kids to learn, and also this idea that AI is going to make all of these dystopian situations worse. So it reads here like a headline being pulled from a dystopian future. Artificial intelligence is being used to ban books by Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, and Maya Angelou from schools. To comply with recently enacted state legislation that censors school libraries, Iowa's Mason City Community School District used ChatGPT to scan a selection of books and flag them for descriptions of visual depictions of a sex act. 19 books, including Morrison's Beloved, Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, Khaled Hosseini's The Kite Runner, which is an incredible book, by the way, will be pulled from the school library collections prior to the start of the year. This intersection of generative AI and Republican authoritarianism is indeed disturbing. It is not, however, the presage of a future ruled by censorious machines. So it's a kind of an important kind of note here, just kind of calm down a little bit, because it's really not like a complete, an AI did this and AI was like the best way to win elections is to ban these books because they're going to, do the exact right political calculation. No, it's like, put in a term to a, pretty low rent, non-intimidating thing in ChatGPT, and they ban those books. But, who said the thing? Why did they put that thing in there? And why did they make the decisions they made based on what ChatGPT put in there? I think those are, definitely the more important questions, and definitely questions that, a lot of people are going to want to have, deal with first before, we start freaking out about what AI could bring. Although I'm not trying to say in any way it is anything good. Because, AI, it says here, is not banning books. Republicans are. The law with which the school district is complying, signed by Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds in May, is yet another piece of astroturf right-wing legislation aimed at eliminating gender nonconformity and racism in basic reproductive education from schools, while solidifying the power of the collective family unit. In the conservative family unit, Bridget Exman, a assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction at the Mason City Community School District, noted in a statement that AI will not replace the district's standard book banning methods, as we'll continue to rely on our long-established process that allows parents to have books reconsidered. And again, this is like, because it really kind of comes down, it's like they're just trying to, do things a little bit easier, do things a little bit faster. So I just can imagine them kind of like sitting around the district office one day and being like, hey, why don't we try this? Like, why just throw this into ChatGPT? And I was like, hey, this sounds pretty good. Because ChatGPT, they can put out a pretty impressive list a lot of the time for a wide variety of things. And talking about, kind of all the problems that they have, and, just going through, whatever the case may be, looking through it, banning it out, and, you can put in, a list of reasons why, and especially for popular books, they'll be accurate. For, like, less popular books, they'll just make some random stuff up. But, if it's well-known, it's big, well-known books like that, it can be very, very effective in terms of just making your job a little bit easier. You go home to the kids a little bit easier and not have to worry about, researching these books, and maybe even reading these books. To figure out what, bannable, quote-unquote, offenses are in them. So at most, the application of ChatGPT here is an example of an already common problem: the use of existing technologies to give a loss of neutrality to political actions. It's well established that predictive policing algorithms repeat the same racist patterns of criminalization as the data on which they're trained. They're taught to treat potentially criminal, those demographics the police have already deemed criminal. So again, it's really kind of an interesting point. It's not using kind of independent data. It's not saying this is what works best for our kids, as a lot of the Iowa City kind of school district people are telling that the parents, that is, and trying to put out there that is. It is saying, it is a response, and I think the comparison to the policing is great points. It's a response to the input that's being put in there, which is ban all these, sexually suggestive books, and it's part of a broader ideology to just, limit the kind of different ideas, the kind of challenging ideas, anything like that people get exposed to, and, really put them down one potential track in life, which is to kind of reproduce the ideology and really also, frankly, the demographics of the people that are kind of making these decisions in the first place. But mostly the ideology and the fact that, these things have to be controlled, limited, watch, monitored, and all of that stuff. So in Iowa's book ban, the algorithmic tool, a large language model, or LLM, followed a simplistic prompt. It didn't process for context. The situation in which a school district is looking to ban texts with descriptions of sex acts had already shaped the outcome. So again, it was their decision to do the thing they did, which is why those books are banned. It's not the AI coming up and saying, this is what you must do, and then be like, okay, listen to you, our smart overlords who are way better at understanding what's right than us. But further comments from X-Men reveal more about the operations of authority at play, which really had little to do with the powerful AI control. As she told Popular Science, frankly, we have more important things to do than spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to protect kids from books. That's that is a horrific sentence for a teacher and someone in the position of education to say. frankly, we have more important things to do than spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to protect kids from books. So let's get a computer large language learning model to do it. At the same time, we do have a legal and ethical obligation to comply with the law. Our goal here is a defensible process. So just saying, we ran it through ChatGPT. It's a more of a thing of laziness more than anything else. But when it comes down to it, it is still just incredibly, deeply depressing that this is kind of where we are. This is what we're doing. I'm sure anyone out there who's been around a school, been around people who would kind of make these type of decisions, you could picture kind of the thought process of what they're doing here. It's like, we're trying to hire, 15 new teachers by the start of the next year. We're trying to interview these people, we're trying to get them set up. But also there has to be this law that we're, kind of getting compliant, we have to protect kids from books. I just can't get over that phrasing of just like all my life I've been here, and it's true, being here, like rightfully told that kids are supposed to read as many books as possible. Books expand kids' worlds, like they're better for them. And especially we're talking, age-appropriate Bible accounts books. Like, it's just like we can't have any sort of thing that would make any kid uncomfortable or happen to possibly maybe help any kid stray away from any sort of, Christian conservative values about, America being the best, God delivering the Constitution, over the Atlantic Ocean, bringing it over with the Pilgrims, whatever. Because that essentially is what U.S. history is in a lot of these places. But it's like, it really is quite clear. You can picture them just sitting in the break room being like, I'll type this out. It's no problem. It's like, it's really, you just throw it in AI. We got to comply with the law just in case they come looking for us. I know. And then let's get back to, worrying about our class sizes and whether or not I'm going to have enough supplies for the year, whatever. So anyway, both casually dismissive of Republican legislation, yet willing to scramble with tech shortcuts to appear in swift compliance. Expert's approach reflects both cowardice and complicity on the part of the school district. Surely protecting students' access to, rather than protecting them from, a rich variety of books should be what school systems do with their time, really. But the myth of algorithmic neutrality makes the book selection look defensible in Expert's terms, both to right-wing enforcers and critics of their pathetic law. The use of ChatGPT is, in this case, might prompt tech doomers and fears, yet focusing concerns on generative AI as a potentially all-powerful force ultimately serves Silicon Valley interests. Both concerns about AI safety and dreams of AI power fuel companies like OpenAI, the developer of ChatGPT, with millions of dollars going into researching AI as an allegedly existential risk to humanity. As critics like Edward Ongweso Jr. have pointed out, such narratives look either fearfully or hopefully to a future of AI almighty, while overlooking the way current AI tools, although regularly shoddy and inaccurate, are already hurting workers and aiding harmful state functions. From management devaluing labor to reactionary centering books, AI doesn't have to be intelligent, work, or even exist, wrote Patrick Blanchfield of the Brooklyn Institute for Social Research on Twitter. Its real function is to mystify, automate, or justify what the powerful are always going to do and are still doing anyways. So that is a really great way, I think, to end today's show, because it does show you that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to use this as a kind of cloak of, it's a generative AI computer model that did it. You can't fault us, to do some pretty bad things. All right, that's all we got for you guys today. We're back on Friday. That's tomorrow.